So we've got all three of them. James and Riya, do you want to see if you guys can hear each other good?
Yeah,
Hello.
I think I can hear you, Riya. Yeah, wonderful. Hey, everyone.
Oh, my heart is so full. This is like truly one of my favorite things in the world, is just to have conversations like this. And I'm so grateful. I had reached out to James, I think just like randomly through the Open Lifestyle group about doing a Facebook Live. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm a member of your group.
Yeah. We are obsessed. Oh, I have like a mini crush on Esther Perel. Like, she's amazing.
I mean, join the club. We all do, really.
Yeah.
So last year we did our first ever Perelian Awards. So honoring group members and the community we've built. And one was like essentially the Esther Perel Crush Award. So I'll keep you in mind as a nominee for this year, Riya.
I volunteer.
Hey everyone, if you're just joining, welcome. So I'm here with Riya and James, and we're going to be talking about navigating relationship endings today. So the first thing I just wanted to start off with is acknowledging how much like courage it takes to show up here and talk about what for so many of us is like one of the most like tender, sensitive experiences that we can go through. So I wanted to acknowledge your courage and the self-awareness that I've witnessed in both of you, and the vulnerability as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, it is. It isn't the most exciting part of my life, but I'm definitely happy to share and learn from it and grow with everybody. So thank you for inviting us here. It was really great to be here.
Awesome. So I wanted to start off with your most recent video that you posted. I shared it in the event webpage, but for any group members who aren't necessarily familiar with your story, I'd love for one of you to just kind of quickly give the overview. And then I'd love to hear from both of you. What was it like to make that video?
James, you can do the overview.
All right. Yeah. So overview. We just ended a almost 7-year relationship. We met when Riya was 19 and I think I was 21. And we were open from literally the end of the first date throughout the entire relationship, and it ebbed and flowed as the relationship needed it to. So in terms of, sometimes it was more monogamish, sometimes it was fully polyamorous. Most of the time it was an open relationship where we were primary partners. And then through that, because we're both relationship nerds, we thought, well, we just didn't connect with a lot of the content out there in regards to opening up. And so we're just like, oh, well, why don't we just share our story? And our first video got some ridiculous amount of views. And I think now it's something on like, 90,000 views, which blows our mind. And so now, and then we just kind of started to just kind of make videos throughout it. And then we find ourselves here now, where our latest video was probably the hardest one.
Yes, I thought that we had a lot of conversations over the phone about, okay, we've created this platform called Open Lifestyle. We've shared our open relationship journey on it and everything. So we've created this amazing community. And now that we are no longer together, we should probably let everyone know what the future holds for this platform. And I thought it was going to be like, we communicate really well. We'll be able to sort of get it done in one take. Oh, please get it done in one take. It took all of Saturday. And then that was really good because there was audio problems and video problems and my dog was barking and all of this stuff. And then all of Sunday, I think 5 or 6 takes by the end of it. We were so professional at breaking up. It was like we were forced to do it. It was like breakup boot camp.
Yeah. James, what was it like for you?
Cathartic, I guess. There's a question that I guess, I'll jump into this question. The question you sent us in regards to, did we have any kind of closing ceremonies, and that kind of was our closing ceremony in a sense, because we're, as you mentioned, we're both in Melbourne, so we're in really harsh lockdowns at the moment. And so technically we can go and see each other, but it's been very difficult. So most of it's been over the phone. And so to be able to do that video and to kind of wrap it up in that way was cathartic, but also painful because, we had to kind of relive it all through the process. And, there's been, numbers of these conversations of kind of dissecting doing a post-mortem on it, so when it's still kind of fresh, so that's been intense, but good.
Yeah. How did you guys decide it was time to bring your relationship to a close?
For me, there was just like a imbalance. It was too painful to continue going the way that we were. As James mentioned, we're in lockdown. We really can't see each other. And even if in the moments that we can, out of the responsibility to look after our families, because I live with mine, I made the decision that I wouldn't. And so it just became taking stock of everything. I was like, we both are causing each other more pain at this point in our relationship, and the pressure of being in an intimate relationship together is outweighing, I suppose, all of the love and kindness that we have to share. And I'm a type of person that I withdraw into myself and I become like, I pull away, whereas James is very solutions focused and he wants to solve things. So it was just like different ways of dealing with it. And I was like, you know what, let's not do this to ourselves, because if we continue, and James had mentioned this before, if we continue the way that we are, we'll probably end up hating each other and not even able to have a civil conversation. So I wanted to have a closing ceremony before I got too crazy.
Yeah. And James had mentioned this idea, like, so often we come together in a relationship because we have shared interests, and yet shared interests aren't enough to keep a relationship together. And so either to James or to you, like, why is it that shared interest and even love sometimes isn't enough?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I guess shared interests it's a big part of it, but for us, they were kind of surface level shared interests. And I mentioned in the video, like, one of the things we really bonded over was that we both love Tim Burton and that we both love trippy, silly, animation like Adventure Time and stuff like that. And I guess the things that did really bond us together was the opening up phase, the conflict and overcoming conflict. And I think that, it's more the ability to overcome things together that really built that trust, and that, those interests were they were there to kind of create the spark, but they weren't there. That wasn't what sustained it. But then towards the end, it was that the more fundamental interests, like, or more fundamental personality traits, I guess, really became obvious in that, for me, my highest value is freedom and adventure. And like, I would spend all day in the beach, and, Riya hates the beach. And that seems trivial, but when I'm becoming...
when it's sunny. I like it when it's grey and cloudy, which I think is abnormal. But yeah.
And I've become quite cynical with society, I guess, over the years, because I don't get why, like, we're doing this work for work's sake thing, like progress for progress sake. To be honest, for me, I'm like, no, we're animals first. We're like, all we need to do is, like, the only reason we really work is to put a house over our head, a roof over our head, and to feed ourselves. And my whole life has really been about getting away from that and I've had a 10-year career in film and done amazing things in that. And now I'm really looking at, okay, how can I get out of this system? And Ria's only really beginning her career. And so we started to basically, our shared vision of where we were going with life started to, dissipate and pull away from one another. So I think, oh yeah, you go.
Oh, sorry, no, you go.
I was just going to say the shared vision, I think, is more of an important thing of how your lives align and how much of your lives overlap. Where ours were definitely pulling away from one another. And in that process, because we had gone through so much conflict in the opening up phase of, having to navigate those hard conversations, those hard emotions, and always come out the other side better and stronger and more loving and more trusting of it. This just seemed like another one of those things. And so as we were drifting away, we were trying harder and harder and harder to stay together and to fix these things, but that was just causing more conflict rather than resolving anything. And I have this kind of philosophy on life of nothing is ever static. It's always changing. And it's this love without attachment. So the more you grip onto something, the more you attach to something, the more it's, the more you're going to get hurt in the process, because life doesn't give a crap about what you want. Things change. And if you can just appreciate the flow of life for what it is, rather than trying to stay at any one point, then when you get to these points where it's like, okay, we're really clearly realizing the reality of the situation, there's no point in continuing to fight and fight and fight when, you're being battered by all the boulders in the stream, rather than just kind of letting go and going with it.
Yeah. You had a quote in your relationship ending video, which I really liked, where, James, you said, the last act of pure love we can have for one another is to not hold on to what was, but to look at what is and what needs to be. The breakup can be the last act of love for setting each other free. This is attachment versus love. I love you and I'm not attached to having you be in my life. But the love I have for you means that when it needs to end, then it can end.
Yeah.
Oh, how poetic.
Sounds a lot nicer when you say it.
It's interesting too, because I'm exploring polyamory myself, and I'm not interested in having a primary partner. So I'm often meeting people who already have an established dynamic. And one of the things that I keep bumping up against is like this really strong attachment where, and it's funny, James, you mentioned your highest value of freedom, because that's like very much mine, like freedom and autonomy. It's actually one of the reasons why I don't like having a primary partner, is I can be free to like explore my passions, and I invest so much time in the group and, like devote a lot of time and energy to that. And it's interesting because as I've been exploring interactions with different men who are part of an established couple, I'm finding that often the couple's highest value is security, like protect the established dynamic at any cost. And oftentimes the primary partner of the guy that I'm dating's highest value is security. And it's funny too, because Esther talks about oftentimes in couples, there's one person who's afraid of suffocation and the other is afraid of, I think it was abandonment, and it's like oftentimes these people attract each other. It's like these competing needs. One has a greater one for freedom and autonomy, and the other one has a greater need for security and status quo, really.
That makes sense. That's definitely us. I do love my freedom. Like I am very much, if James is happy exploring, doing his thing, and I'm allowed to as well, that's great, because we've both experienced how amazing it can be to go out there and untethered and explore another person for who they are and what we can share with them. And it's just been such a beautiful experience, even if it didn't last very long, or if it was just, over a summer or whatever it was. So I definitely think that James is a little bit more, I suppose, non-monogamous than I am, because at the end, my ultimate goal, whether it's with a few people or whether it's with one person, it's to be able to say that I shared my life completely, and that I loved somebody and I cared for them, and that I had that in return. So whether it's just me and one other person and our dogs and cats sitting on a porch getting old, or if it's a group of people, that's sort of my ultimate goal.
And James, what for you view as the ultimate purpose of relationships?
That's a good question. The ultimate purpose of relationships. It's to share on the adventure, I guess. For me, it's to build something together, to share something. I don't know. I've never really thought about the purpose of relationships. Give me more time to think about that. I'm going to come back to that one. Yeah. I'll continue to think about that.
For me, it's really growth. It's like, how does this awaken me? How does it grow me?
Yeah. Now that you actually, saying that, yes, 100%. Like looking over our relationship, that has probably been one of the biggest things of coming together and being mirrors for one another. And because you're so intimate and you've got to, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. It's about dropping the barriers and opening up in the face of pain and vulnerability, and the other person saying, yeah, I can see this and this and this, and this is all bullshit and this is true. Definitely growing together, 100%.
And it's interesting too, because as someone who values growth, and you just articulated that you value growth, I almost wonder if it can be so meaningful to experience that growth through the process of having an open relationship, that can overshadow some of the truths that you might not want to, look at.
Definitely.
Yes, definitely. I think our open relationship kept us busy for a long time, and we were enjoying going through that process together. Especially for me, when I started, I was like, yeah, let's do this, it's going to be great, I know that this kind of dynamic exists and I want to do this with you. And then I started feeling very attached to James, and I was like, but he's so pure and sweet and nice. What if someone comes into his life and they're just like, oh, this is just a phase, I can steal him away from his girlfriend, and I'm like, oh, what if he's so naive? And like, I started getting all of these insecure attachment feelings, and I was like, oh no, I am an incredibly jealous, possessive person. I think it came from my first relationship, where I was in high school. I suppose I was dating a senior, and I was like, oh, I'm so cool or whatever, but his whole vibe was that jealousy is the ultimate way to show love,
Yeah.
So he would flirt with my friends in front of me just to get a rise out of me. And he's like, well, I was talking to this girl. She asked me for my number. I'm like, okay, I trust you.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that at all. He was like, how can you? And if a friend came up to me and he gave me a hug, he'd be like, why are you touching other boys? I don't even like it if your brother, were to hug you. And I'm like, okay. So that went on for a while, and that was my first exposure to a relationship. So then having to unpack all of that and being like, okay, he's not mine. He's sharing his life with me, and that's okay. And as you mentioned, at the start, I was very much like, what makes me your girlfriend and what makes these other people your lovers? I have to have these things that establish my role in your life. And then I learned to let that go. And it was a beautiful process. I wouldn't take anything back, but it did it blinded us from really seeing where we fit in the long term and our values and what we want in each other's lives. So that did take a bit of time away from those things.
At the same time, though, we were very young, and I don't think I definitely knew that freedom was my highest value, but it's changed in terms of where the life trajectory is really kind of started becoming more and more extreme in that sense of become, personally, my own sovereignty and autonomy. And the relationship definitely, at the beginning, I don't think regardless, we would have had, the same relationship in terms of, well, maybe not the same relationship, but we still would have had a great relationship, but it may have ended a little quicker, rather than, because we formed such intense bonds through that growth period, that we didn't really think about the broader overarching, where are our lives going. And because, I was at the start of my career, Riya was in study. So those things kind of hadn't manifested and become obvious to us. And over the last year or so, that really did start to creep into the picture.
Yeah. One of the things that you brought up, which I've really been personally wrestling with, is this idea of like wants and needs. And you had said something again in your breakup video where James shared, you can't have a different partner for every need. There's an aspect to an open relationship which can get in the way of growth. We both knew the truth that we weren't meeting each other's core needs. An open relationship can give you the excuse of, oh, I can get those needs met elsewhere, which is true. But for the core values you need in your life, it's not true. And then you went on to say, especially if you want a primary partnership, which we weren't meeting those needs. And it's interesting because I know this sounds silly, but I am so satisfied in a relationship when there's ongoing communication. Not like boring surface level communication, but communication that deepens intimacy. That's like consistent. Sometimes maybe it's erotic, sometimes it's more like heartfelt or like emotional. And it's interesting because I had started to date a guy who I was really connecting with and enjoying spending time with, who that wasn't really his style. He was very like engaged if I reached out, and very like communicative and open, but he didn't really initiate it. I think probably because it wasn't a core need of his. And so I was kind of like flirting with the idea like, oh, is this the type of thing where because I'm exploring open relationships, I can just go get that need met by someone else and still be able to enjoy his company? I'm like, no, I think this is like one of my most fundamental needs is like intimacy. And especially during a pandemic, but even just in general, like a great way to do that is through texting or video messages or audio messages or, talking on the phone, whatever it might be. And for someone where that's not a core need, it just wouldn't work for me. So my question for you guys is, I was curious, like what each of your core needs are in a relationship.
You go first, James. I'm going to think of that.
I think it would be a sense of curiosity and passion for engaging in adventure and the stranger sides of life. So for me, to be able to talk about consciousness, the nature of reality, psychedelics, travel, lifestyle design, these kind of more what's the term? The term eludes me, but not your standard kind of mainstream conversations that we can connect on these deeper levels of exploring the nature of reality. I think is for me a core one, and also I think probably just an ongoing deep curiosity for life, and for me that looks like sexual curiosity. So even if it's not I'm really into BDSM or BDSM parties or sex parties or whatever, I want to go and experience that to find out if I would like that, and to go and do these things, and okay, I want to go and drink ayahuasca in the jungle because I want to explore that side of myself, or I want to see if I can become totally financially independent so that I don't have to so that I'm not having to make decisions based on other people's needs of me. So things like this, basically, it all comes down to personal freedom and sovereignty and autonomy, and curiosity for life, I think.
Yeah. Riya, I have a follow-up. Are you ready to go? I was going to say,
no, you go. You finish your.
I can stall. I was going to say, like, I feel like there are so many people who might not know what their core needs are, and I was curious if you guys have any suggestions, like, how do you approach that process of identifying your core relationship needs?
I'm in the process of it because I realized that I hadn't stopped for a second to really think about what I need from someone. It was always my go-to with all relationships in my life is, what can I give to somebody?
Yeah.
And to a point where it's detrimental to myself, I've realized. I've gone to therapy and I've realized that. And so I'm working through being able to ask what I need for myself. And what I've come up with is just very basic for now. And it's, I need someone who is compassionate, empathetic, and is able to, in my life right now where I am, provide emotional support. Like, I just need a bit of like affection and intimacy. And I'm naturally very flirty and things like that. So I think if someone can manage or support me emotionally, I think right now in my life, that's where I'm starting. That's what I'm looking for.
Beautiful. I'm actually going to follow up with you after this interview because I've been hearing about your psychology journey, and there's an amazing resource I've stumbled across that I wanted to share with you.
I'm so excited. Yes, please.
So I was curious, you mentioned kind of as a closing relationship ritual doing this video, which I imagine would be hard, but also like deeply meaningful. I was curious if there were any other like closing rituals that you guys had.
Well, it kind of happened very quickly. We did see a relationship psychologist, which I think for us, maybe that was a good step. That was like, let's just give it, this is our last shot. We don't know what to do. We need someone objective, because we were very much having a lot of conversations where it would feel we're just running around in circles trying to fix our problems. We're like, okay, let's actually speak to a professional, get some advice. And in a way, I think that felt, when we finally made the decision, it felt like, okay, we did everything, that we could. So that felt like a little bit of a ritual for me.
It's funny, Riya and I were talking about this last night. I come back to, I probably would have liked to have done mushrooms together to have that, but I don't think that would have been, I think that might have just been more for me. I think probably in that it probably would have pulled us further apart in where we are at the moment. Because I find that they're very deeply introspective and cathartic, and but it also may have not been a great thing, and we haven't had that chance to do it either. So so there's that. But I think, as Riya said, the going to the psychologist, doing that video, and also just we gave each other a couple of weeks where we didn't speak for just a block of time, just to be like, okay, because we were speaking every day before this, so to have that block of time was nice, painful but nice, to kind of really be on our own and sit with it, and before reconnecting and then talking again. Because we always had the intention of, we want to still be friends. This isn't because it's something that I hate about our culture and the way that we break up. It's so final, and it's just, we're broken up and we're done, rather than,
sometimes that's good.
It is sometimes good. Obviously there are exceptions, but that's because I think we have such toxic views around relationships that they get to that point where that explosive breakup is needed. Whereas our relationship had really great communication throughout the entire thing. So it didn't need that at the end, and we wanted to just kind of give each other the space to process our emotions by ourselves without having to constantly be just opening these wounds and, you know, picking the scab off the relationship wounds every time we spoke to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, were you going to say something, Riya?
Just one little thing. I knew that when we broke up and we said, let's give each other space, I knew that I would really struggle, because it's just so easy. You've shared 7 years of your life with somebody. Anything small that comes up, I'll be like, oh, James will like this, or let me share this meme, or let me send him this video. So I said to him, if there is an emergency and you're having a breakdown and you need to speak to me, or I need to speak to you, let's just call each other. Let's not be like, no, this is like a military thing. Just cannot reach out at all. So I left that space open. It's like, you're in my life, I'm in your life. We don't hate each other. We still want to see each other through this pain that we're experiencing. So if it gets overwhelming, reach out. And then we did weekly check-ins. We said, okay, let's go a week and we'll do a Sunday check-in, you know, just to see how we're going. That way it doesn't feel like we're in this alone and we have to adjust to this new normal or this new absence in our life. So I think that really helped us, because if I was struggling through the week, I'm like, it's okay, I'll check in with him on Sunday, and then we can, you know, take it like. And I'm very lucky. I actually, now talking about it, I feel very grateful that we were able to do that, because it did bring me some peace that I wasn't having to deal with it all by myself.
Yeah, that's so graceful. I love that. It's a really beautiful, like, letting go, but also like acknowledging the strength of the relationship and the meaning of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was curious how each of you guys process grief and loss.
Very differently.
Yeah. You go first.
Sure. I withdraw completely. I feel like maybe the imagery that I get is of that inner child, just sort of going inwards to myself to protect myself from what's happening around me. I've read so many books and watched so many TV shows just to escape my life. So yes, for me, it's very much I close off and lick my wounds in the dark. Whereas I think James is a little bit more active in the process.
Yeah, I've always been a bit of an oddball with my emotions, in the sense that I hate the term, but equanimous. You know, it always sounds wrong when I say it, but you know, I'm baseline happy pretty much all the time, and I'll feel really extreme joy and really extreme sadness, but for only very brief moments. And I think, and I hate to always bring it back to psychedelics, but I think honestly, it really has come from deep work that I've done with getting to know myself and the nature of reality. In that, and I was just on a call just before with a few friends, and we were talking about this, and I mentioned that it's a real deep understanding for me of, we only live now. The past is a memory, is a story. The future is a projection. The only moment we have is right now. And so those things I experience in the moment, and then once I've experienced it, I don't tend to hold on to the story and the pain of it. I kind of let it go. There are practices that you can do. I don't tend to I don't tend to do anything like that. There, you know, you can do shaking, you can do movement, physically moving the emotions through you. The analogy that always comes to mind when I think of this is, in the way that I kind of tend to experience emotions, is, you know, the gazelle being chased by a lion. It's full flight, full fear, you know, and then it escapes and it shakes out of all of that nervousness out of its system. And it's like, oh, now I'm going to go and eat some grass. You know, and that tends to be my experience with most things in life. And also, I think possibly, you know, throughout the end of our relationship, I was quite unhappy for the last, you know, year to 6 months of it. so I kind of already, processed all of the, like, kind of been holding on to these emotions for while this was all happening. And then once it ended, I was just able to, like, kind of relax and go, okay, cool. This is, I still love Riya. We're still friends. But I'm not holding on to what was, but now looking at what is. And that grief comes from all of our emotions tend to come from the stories. And it sounds condescending to call them stories, because for most people they're really real, but they are just stories in the end. They are just belief structures, just stories that we tell ourselves to keep a narrative going. And when you can really kind of have a felt experience of this, a lived experience of these, understanding these things, then it's a little easier to let them go, I guess.
Yeah, I'm so different. I'm like,
same.
I'm
not that advanced.
I mean, it sounds great in theory, not how I'm wired.
Yeah, I don't know how helpful it is. That's just kind of, how it is for me.
It was while we were in a relationship, I was inspired. I'm like, wow, it's possible, like he's doing it. Yeah. For me, I'm just like, if someone says something to me that's off-putting, like that I can feel it physically upset my day. And it's my therapist calls it's like you've been slimed. Mm-hmm. And to shake off that slime for me just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Also, I probably should mention here, I think possibly the reason is, so how I got interested in relationship dynamics and all of this was, as and it's controversial to say because there's so much negativity surrounded by this, but I got deep into the pickup scene when I was 18 because I had no skills with women. And so I literally would go out there and say, hi, I've probably been rejected more than 1,000, 2,000 times by people. And I've come to learn that I'm totally fine by myself, that these external things, that even though we shared this amazing relationship, I am truly okay by myself. And I've really come to terms with who I am as a person and put myself through the fire of putting myself in these difficult situations, feeling those emotions, letting them go, realizing that I'm totally safe and fine, and then doing it again and doing it again, doing it again at high repetition. And so it makes it easier for, times like this where, it's a much bigger, more important thing, but I'm not attached, I guess, to the outcome of whatever it was. And I always said this to Riya at the very beginning of our relationship. There's two ways this ends. We die or we break up. There is no happy ending. Not very romantic, but it is, if you're so attached to not breaking up, then it's, I think, so much harder. And because I wasn't attached to not breaking up, I was, the way that I was approaching it was I just want to love fully, open myself up as much as I can in these moments, that when it happens, and it's just another thing that, in life that is just, it just is.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think people are just wired so differently, both like biology, but also like our childhood experiences. I'm someone who, I love being alone. Obviously, I said, like, not interested in a primary partner, really love my life as it is. And yet I'm still like wildly impacted by emotions. And even just watching your video, like I could see in Riya's energy, just the intensity of it. And that hits me and I take it on. So I totally get what you were saying about like, rejection exposure therapy almost, in terms of like the whole pickup artist approach. But I also think people we're just wired differently. And for some people, even if we've done a ton of inner work and we meditate and even if we're like really, really great and totally happy on our own, that we can just be like super deeply impacted by these things. So, okay. So I wanted to close with, this was an amazing Esther interview she did on a podcast called Knowledge Project. And she shared this quote The way people leave a previous relationship, the quality of the breakup is really at the heart of how people start their next relationship. How much they will trust, how much they will collaborate, how they protect themselves, how they anticipate what will happen, how much they bring these invisible X's with them. And then she shared a meaningful closing might be, number one, here are the things that I take with me from what we have lived together. And here are the things that I hope you take with you from what we shared. Here is what I wish for you. And here is what I think I could have done better. And I'm curious if you guys would be open to sharing that. So the first one was, here are the things that I take with me from what we have lived together.
I can go because James has been so important in me, like going through college, and now I'm out in the big world. He was there for a lot of my growth as a human. The things that I will take with me is your fierce independence. I'm very much a person who I feel like I always need to be connected with people and need people around me. So I want to take even a little slither of your fierce independence and freedom into my life and incorporate that with every step that I take forward, so that even though I want to be surrounded by people, that I can be settled within myself.
For me, I think your emotional intelligence. Riya definitely has helped me understand my emotions and who I am, and opened me up to a much deeper understanding of all of that. So definitely taking, emotional intelligence and emotional awareness going forward.
Beautiful. And the second one was, here are the things that I hope you take with you from what we shared.
I hope that you continue to focus not on solutions, but on how you're feeling in moments, because I really like how you want to take action and fix things, but I hope you take the time to check in with yourself and see if things need to be fixed, or if you just need to check in with yourself.
And I would say the things I hope you take forward is questioning everything. Questioning, do I need to, just because it is the way that it is, does it, is this the best way that it should be? Just because, society does it this way. And I think that kind of is emblematic of our entire relationship, of questioning the status quo. That was what I was trying to think of before when I couldn't find my word. Question the status quo of every aspect of life.
Awesome. And then I'll combine the final two. So it's, here is what I wish for you, and here is what I think I could have done better.
What I wish for you is success in what you want to find. I know that you have big dreams for your career, about how you want your life to be, and I'm here for it. Like, I want to see you do those things and create your earth ship and grow all your vegetables and just like do everything that you want to do, keep traveling and filming. And wait, what was the other part?
Here's where I think I could have done better.
Oh yes, of course. I mean, I played a part in us not being together anymore. So I think I'll take responsibility for the fact that I put our relationship on the back burner because I was feeling overwhelmed with other aspects of my life, and I should have taken stock and checked in to make sure that while I was freaking out about everything else in my life, that I was also nurturing and keeping our connection strong. And I'm sorry that fell on the back burner and that it's ended the way it has, but I'm grateful to have you in my life and to see where it goes from here.
Beautiful.
And do you want to just say those questions again?
Yeah. The first one is, here is what I wish for you. And the second one is, here is where I think I could have done better.
wish for you. I wish the world. I wish the world for you. I wish. I hope that you can find. Seems trivial, but find a job that is, deeply meaningful and adds positivity to your life, and gives you an avenue to, affect the world in the way that, you want to, and to find somebody. I want you to find somebody to, whether it be open or monogamous or whatever it is, that is maybe a little more emotionally nurturing than I am, and that leads into what I wish I could have done better, is that I wish that I could have, been better at dealing, at not trying to problem solve, but I struggle saying this because I have so much internal conflict around this. But yeah, I wish that I could have been stronger to deal with it, to deal with the conflict, and to be still in myself while allowing you to work out what it is that you needed to work out, or stiller, I guess.
Thank
That's really beautiful. I love that. That was really beautiful to be a part of. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. And wow, Esther Perel, my crush is restored.
I know. She always nails it. Okay, guys. So for our closing segment, the group knows we do a partnership with High Tide, the High Tide app called Song Therapy, where we break down the relationship dysfunction in popular songs. And I asked James and Riya what song they would want to pick, and they picked
Every Breath You Take by the Police.
By the Police.
Right.
Yes.
One of the creepiest songs of all time.
It's so messed up.
So I was curious if there were maybe one or two different lyrics that particularly stood out for you in this song.
For me, I mean, it's quite repetitive, but the one that stands out to me is the "Oh, can't you see you belong to me? How my poor heart aches with every step you take." It just feels very manipulative, and I can see it comes from a place of, like, I want to understand it. Like, it comes from a place of pain, and I'm empathetic to that. However, it's misplaced.
Super possessive.
Yeah.
Which is often how relationships are. It's interesting too, because like even in the opening up process, and James, earlier you mentioned that one of the reasons you created your open lifestyle channel is because a lot of the content about opening up didn't resonate. And I really wanted to dive into that, but we don't have time. But next time. A lot of the books on opening up, I feel like they suggest a process that implies possession, like permission granting. I give you permission to do X, Y, and Z, which to me is it's like nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, oh my gosh, that does not resonate. But I think possessiveness is, oftentimes embedded in a lot of relationships.
Yeah, which is why we chose this song. My career is I'm a wedding filmmaker.
Wow.
I've heard this song as people's first dance. It is.
Wow.
I just want to go up to them and go, "You guys, you should not be married. This should not be going ahead. What the fuck is going on?" It's a toxic song, and it's a song written about a stalker. Like, it is Sting has spoken about this. He's like, people, you think this is a love song because it's got a kind of a beautiful melody. It's the most toxic, possessive, stalkerish thing, and it is literally about a breakup and then a guy stalking a woman.
Wow.
And so, the line that I've got here is, since you've gone, I've been lost without a trace. I dream at night and I can only see your face. I look around, but it's you I can't replace. I feel so cold and long for your embrace. That is just, this total codependency,
Yeah.
total just I am not complete without you,
Yeah.
and which kind of goes to the whole thing we've been talking about in that why it was, you know, the we're both full people, we're both whole people, and then we come together, we share that, and then we leave and we're still whole people.
Right.
This is somebody that has found their entire meaning of and purpose in life, and is trying to heal that wound of separation externally rather than internally. So yeah.
Extreme enmeshment, extreme codependency. We talked a little bit earlier about the difference between love versus attachment. This is like attachment on steroids.
Yeah.
And another element I observed is this idea of surveillance, which actually comes up quite a bit in the Esther Perel group, because it goes hand in hand with when trust is broken or there's a betrayal. Often people gravitate towards surveillance as a way to kind of regain that control. And try to rebuild the trust kind of in a way that's like grasping at any way they can. And of course, like the repeated line in the song is "I'll be watching you," which is like the definition of surveillance.
Yeah. It's so I love the song. I love the song so much because it's a great song. But yeah, it is. Every time I listen to it, it just reminds me of every toxic relationship that I've witnessed. And
I feel like, James, you should tell your wedding couples next time they say that's their like opening first dance song, you should suggest the P. Diddy remake where he sampled it.
Yes.
I haven't heard it.
You've never heard
it? Oh, it's amazing.
It's such a good song. It was, I think he wrote it about Tupac's death. He did it with Faith Evans, and they sample Every Breath You Take. But it's like essentially like an R&B rap song almost.
Yeah.
It's so catchy and I love it. So maybe suggest that to them instead. Well, James, I know that you have to run and you have a hard stop soon. So I just wanted to, I don't know if you guys have any kind of like closing thoughts that you wanted to make sure were expressed.
This is now part of our ritual. This was such a beautiful way to, I think, now that we've had this conversation, to have someone to facilitate, it just feels like we've been able to close the chapter of our adventure in such a special way. And I'm so grateful for you, Leah, that you reached out to us and wanted to have this conversation, because I feel a lot lighter now. And it ebbs and flows. There are good days and bad days, but I feel very lucky and blessed to be able to be connected with people such as you.
Thank you so much, Riya.
Yeah, just to echo that, just to say thank you, because it's been amazing. It's been incredible to share our relationship journey and to see it resonate with other people, and then to be able to, share kind of the darker sides, and to be able to put that out there is really meaningful, painful but meaningful. I'm just glad that I just hope that whatever little bits and pieces we can share, people resonate with, and it helps them in any way. So thankful that you joined our Facebook group and then reached out, and we've been able to have this conversation, because it's been awesome and a lot of fun.
Wonderful. So where can people find you online? Where's the best way they can stay in touch?
Probably, Facebook Messenger. You could join our open lifestyle group. There's so many people there. If you're curious about non-monogamy or just relationships in general, definitely you can add me as a friend, send me a message. I'm always open to being connected to people. I think that's my mode of I like sending audio messages on Messenger, so you can hear my lovely voice all the time.
I both know I'm the same way.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all about the audio messages.
Me too.
Typing sucks. Just our open lifestyle, our website, we actually let slip, so we've got to get that back up and running eventually. But our YouTube channel and Facebook group are the best two places to connect.
Beautiful. And you guys are both group members, so they can tag you in posts. And
please.
Yeah. So thank you guys both so much for sharing your journey so vulnerably. There's so many beautiful comments, thanking you, gratitude, everything. So thank you both. enjoy the start of your day over in Melbourne.
Yes.
And we'll catch you in the group soon.
Yeah, thanks, Leah.
Thank you, everybody.
See you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.